According to the National Institutes of Health, attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder is a disorder marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and/or hyperactivity impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. It is most commonly referred to as ADHD and is the most common disorder in children. It can present differently in males and females, but the CDC states that it is often characterized by lasting inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity which interfere with daily life. It has both genetic and environmental causes which interact to cause ADHD. Environmental factors include smoking and drinking while pregnant. There is known to be a strong link between genetics and the inheritance of ADHD. However, not everything is fully understood yet. It is known that there's a correlation with a lack of the protein tryptophan and ADHD. Tryptophan releases chemicals into the brain such as serotonin. According to a study done by the NIH, there is evidence of the contribution of serotonergic neurotransmission to attentional processes in adults with ADHD. The genetic variations we recommend to test for in order to determine an increased likelihood of developing ADHD are found on the Val66Met gene, the BDNF gene, the HTR1B gene, and the D4 and D5 receptor genes.
BDNF and the SNP RS6265, also known as Val66Met. The RS6265 variation is associated with differences in brain motor system function, altered short-term plasticity, and greater error in short-term memory learning. The G allele most commonly encodes for Val and the A allele encodes for Met. Therefore, the A genotype has been shown to have the most increased chance of developing ADHD. The genotype AA has also been proven to show an increase in certain traits of those with ADHD, such as impaired motor learning skills, but also includes traits like introversion, depression, and quicker mental decline in Alzheimer's patients. The genotype GG is the most common in the BDNF gene, showing no signs of ADHD. In specific, the RS6265 variation is caused by a DNA methylation in the BDNF gene that is connected to amygdala reactivity, which is the emotion processing center of the brain. This increases those traits of inability to process, react, and display to emotions. The next SNP that we will be testing is RS3746544, which is found on SNAP25. SNAP25 is a part of the SNARE complex that is involved in the release of neurotransmitters during synaptic transmission and in the formation of synapses. This can change how a cell receives information, ultimately altering the cell, which in this case can lead to such diseases as ADHD. It has been found that the genotype AA is associated with an increase in ADHD, and the genotype CC has been shown to have an increase in the chance of developing schizophrenia.
ADHD has a very high chance of being passed on genetically from parent to offspring. There are significant associations between two loci, RS6296 and RS3746544, and the dimensions of ADHD. RS6296 was found to be associated with the total ADHD and inattention, and RS3746544 was associated with hyperactivity, impulsivity, which is a major characteristic of ADHD. ADHD has a 44 to 59% SNP heritability, which means that genetic testing for ADHD could be majorly helpful. There are also two locations where ADHD could show up as visible, which makes testing fairly accurate. There's also an 86% overlap for inattentive and hyperactive impulsive symptom dimension, which only leaves about 14% uniqueness.
While genetic testing has provided incredible relief and help to many suffering from ADHD, there are a few issues with the determinability of results. In a safety communication article on the FDA's website, they warned anyone who may choose genetic testing to find the proper medication or therapy needed to help with this trait. Changing or administering drug treatment based on the results from a genetic test can lead to inappropriate treatment decisions and potentially serious health consequences for the patient. Psychiatric disorders are much more involved than just having brown or blue eyes, as environmental factors combined with a whole array of genes make it difficult to treat properly with medication. ADHD drugs take around 2 weeks to determine effectiveness at a given dose, and antidepressants can take less time than that. A company called Harmonix has specialized in genetic testing and stated that genetic testing to determine drug response is different from genetic testing to diagnose ADHD. The tests that Harmonix can provide lean more towards uncovering how somebody's body reacts to the medication prescribed more than determining whether they have the trait at all. Replication of these genetic tests will help fine-tune the results of these tests. However, based on results, only 10% was better than chance at diagnosing the disorder.
By testing positive for ADHD, the individual should understand that there are many emotional side effects, such as getting frustrated very quickly, worrying about little things, excess urgency to get what they want at that moment, taking strong offense to even gentle criticism, and having trouble calming down their emotions. Any concerns about these emotional changes can be dealt with medication or counseling. In both adults and children, there's a very significant increase in the annual medical costs for those diagnosed with ADHD. But despite these increased costs for a positive diagnosis, health insurance often covers costs of medications and can help out each qualified individual.